Good evening. Tonight we watched Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. And in this particular case, I think that the title is referring to the book uh, that Dr. Frankenstein wrote about life and death and how that comes into play in Abbott and Costello. Because Frankenstein, of course, is the guy, not the monster, and there are no descendants of Frankenstein in this. But before that, other movies. Um, we had an Amazon Prime, a mini Amazon Prime marathon with Midsommar and The Lighthouse. And those movies were really, really weird and disturbing. And I'd say more about them, but I don't think I'm qualified. But after those movies, we recovered with Disney and Pixar's Coco, which is one of the greatest animated movies ever made, and you should definitely watch it. It is a little spooky because it's about death and ghosts and the afterlife world and all that. But it is, of course, a children's movie, and it's not too spooky, but it is spooky, so it qualifies for. It's not as spooky as Midsommar, but it does qualify for Halloween viewing. So this Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein is the eighth of the films that Frankenstein's monster appears in. Um, Frankenstein's monster, of all the classic monsters, appears in the most films, at least in this box set, and it wraps up the stories of, at least as far again as this series is concerned, of Dracula, the Wolfman, and Frankenstein's monster, and the Invisible Man, voiced by Vincent Price, makes an appearance in the form of a cigarette and a match. So, four classic monsters. I think that's because in the previous ones, Wolfman, Dracula, and Frankenstein's monster appeared, and there was a hunchback or two, but I don't think they count as classic monsters. They didn't have their own movies, but The Invisible Man does. So, four monsters in a single movie. That's the record. And it was good. It was my first. Of course, I've seen the Descendants, the comedic Descendants of Abbott and Costello, but it was my first time extended exposure to Abbott and Costello, and they're very funny. You hear the term universal comedy or universal appeal or whatever thrown around quite a bit, referring to classic or ageless, timeless, that sort of thing. In reference to comedy, and some of their bits were not as funny, but a lot of it was really, really funny, and I think does qualify as timeless comedy. A lot of comedy does not age well. Theirs ages fine. And Bela Lugosi played Dracula for the first time since that first movie, and he was very good. It was very nice to hear his voice again and his accent. Other actors can do the Dracula accent, but they're doing Bela Lugosi's accent. It's just not natural with them. So it loses something. But him being there and his voice, the low notes of his voice and his accent exactly as it is supposed to sound because it's coming from him, really, really nice as we move toward the end of the Universal Classic Monsters series. Really nice to see that and hear that again. And I will look into seeing more Bela Lugosi. He plays vampires in other things. He's in other movies. I'll see more of him somewhere. As the monster, Glenn Strange once again. And once again, the monster spends most of the time kind of in a semi-coma or whatever. He's powering down. I guess he needs to be recharged. And so, as with the past several movies, one of the missions of this movie is to reactivate the monster. And it's kind of a waste of the monster, and it is certainly kind of a waste of the actor playing the monster. Might be part of the reason Boris Karloff wasn't interested. Although we watched a little documentary that was on the DVD that said that Karloff was approached to play the monster, but at least what they said in the documentary was he didn't feel that the monster should be ridiculed in that way and made fun of. And he was worried that would be so. That's why he didn't want to do this particular movie with Abbott and Costello. But apparently he helped promote it. And then he made a movie with Abbott and Costello later called Abbott and Costello Meet the Killer. Not included in this box set, but I'll look for it. I'd like to see it. But it occurred to me this time watching that if the monster essentially being a big piece of machinery that needs to be carted around and reactivated in order to be used to cause destruction, it's unfair to Mary Shelley's original monster in many ways, but it has its own appeal and its own weight to it. That this giant beast is important enough and powerful enough of a force that people will lug it around and plug it in so that they can use it. And of course, they want to use it for nefarious schemes, and it never works out for them. The nefarious characters who want to use the monster, but it's a different kind of monster, and a different kind of scary. Lon Chaney Jr. continues to play the Wolfman, continues to play him very appealingly. It's kind of like if Tom Hanks were playing the Wolfman. That's what I've been trying to think. Who does Lon Chaney Jr. remind me of this whole time? It's Tom Hanks, because part of it is that he's very tall, and part of it is his nose, but also just his demeanor is very Tom Hanks. So if Tom Hanks played the Wolfman, that would be this. So the premise of the story is that Frankenstein monster, again, laid out, deactivated, and Dracula in his coffin have been shipped to a kind of a museum, a House of Horrors exhibit type thing. Some guy ordered them or whatever off of Amazon, and they arrive and they escape. And this part of the thing is this guy's trying to get them back, but that's part of the whole humorous thing. Dracula is the one who wants to reactivate the monster. And it also occurred to me on this go-around that apparently the secret to the monster's immortality is that Frankenstein filled it with electricity, by which logic, the bride of Frankenstein should also have survived all this time. And from what I know about Ella Lanchester, that might have been a very amusing movie, Abbott and Costello Meet the Bride of Frankenstein, but of course that didn't happen. But what does happen is Dracula has his servant, who is Sandra Mornay, played by Lenore Aubert, and she's got a bit of a menace to her, not as much as other characters in the past, other assistants in the past have had, but she was very good. And I should just talk about Abbott and Costello. I was telling the supernatural malevolent force that I live with and who watches these movies with me that it felt like today's equivalent would be Key and Peele meet the Hulk, and then Doctor Strange is a character in the Hulk, and so is, let's say, Captain America. So Doctor Strange, Captain America, and the Hulk in this adventure with Key and Peele. And it was like I said, very funny, not modern day laugh out loud. It takes a lot to get me to laugh out loud, but I snickered a bit. And it was, and it worked. It like Key and Peele wouldn't work with Bela Lugosi's Dracula and Glenn Strange's monster and Lon Chaney's Wolfman. It was of a different time, but since Abbott and Costello were of the same time, they probably wouldn't work very well with the Hulk, Doctor Strange, and Captain America. So it felt like two things that went together because they were of the same period, working together well. The documentary that we watched that was on the DVD also said that I guess Bela Lugosi was amused by the antics of the guys, but didn't necessarily want to be involved in anything that wasn't scripted. Um, but then, and Glenn Strange as the monster. There's a part where uh, Abbott, I think, sits on the monster's lap, but doesn't realize he's sitting on the monster's lap, and it made the monster laugh. It made Glenn Strange laugh, and so they had to cut the takes. Um, Interesting documentaries on these. We haven't watched all of them, but definitely will watch all of them. Curious information. Let's see, anything else that I want to bring to light? The next one in line is Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man. This, being the last of the Frankenstein movies, can now go back in the box, back in the coffin. It can deactivate until it's called upon. Dracula had this weird ring. I think it was a ring that he would apply to the bolts in the monster's neck, and they would zap them. So I think that I don't know where the power came from in Dracula's ring, but it was kind of like the electronic key fob to unlock the monster. It was interesting. Nice to see Bela Lugosi as Dracula again. I'm going to say that's all that I want to say, because I can't think of any more. So, Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man tomorrow. That should be fun. Have a lovely midnight.